So again, good afternoon. My name is Kevin Polito. I'm the Neighborhood Affairs Director at the City of Miami Beach. Sorry for the brief delay there, but thank you everybody for taking the time to join us this evening. We have a quick presentation on the draft amendment to our Sea Turtle Ordinance. And you have our Chief Resiliency Officer and our Environmental and Sustainability Director, Amy Knowles, who's going to walk us through that amendment and the proposed language. We also have Samantha Tiffany from the Environment and Sustainability team, as well as Mr. George Hernandez from our Code Compliance team. Before we get started, I do want to recognize and thank our elected officials joining us this evening. I see we have Mayor Stephen Miner, as well as his Deputy Chief of Staff, Mr. Blake Govan. I also see Commissioner Tanya Bott, as well as Commissioner David Suarez. From our fire department, we have our Chief Digna Abello. Thank you so much for joining. And just doing a quick look to make sure I didn't miss anybody. So today's presentation is going to be led by Tiffany and Amy. I'm going to turn it over to Amy for a quick introduction to what we're going to be talking about tonight. And then at the end, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and raise your hand and we'll be happy to answer any questions, hear any comments you all may have. Amy?
Well, thank you so much, Kevin. And first, I just want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. We know everybody is super busy and really appreciate your time to learn a little bit more and to give us your feedback on these ordinance amendments. As many of you know, Miami Beach is home to threatened and endangered sea turtles that nest on our very own beaches. So the purpose of our meeting is to give an overview of these amendments to an ordinance that was created way back in 2006, so some time ago. So the proposed amendments address many areas for improvement in our current ordinance and also have recommended modifications from FWC, which is Florida Fish and Wildlife, due to the city's level of sea turtle disorientations. So from a compliance perspective, this is a very proactive ordinance that over time we think can really help reduce this issue of disorientations. Last year, back in 2023, about 45% of our nests actually became disoriented, meaning that the sea turtles didn't go in the right direction. Instead, they came, kind of towards the dunes and not towards the ocean like they're supposed to. Education is really important for this. Compliance is really important. I do want to thank George Hernandez from our code team who's on tonight. And we've conducted 256 lighting survey inspections this year alone. And about half of them with the team from Miami-Dade County, who are also on the line, and they basically have our sea turtle conservation program and do all sorts of education as well. So we have a lot of opportunities that remain for feedback. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Samantha. She is our city's environmental resources manager, a coastal ecologist locally from Miami, and educated in marine sciences from University of Florida. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Tiffany.
Thank you, Amy. I appreciate it. I'd like to start by giving you all a bit of background on some of the sea turtles found here. The city of Miami Beach is a nesting habitat for 3 species of protected sea turtles, which are the green loggerhead and leatherback sea turtles. There are 2 additional species that can come to nest as well. However, it's very rare to see them, and all species are either threatened or endangered, which makes conservation efforts crucial to their survival. It's our responsibility as a city to enact policies that support these conservation efforts. I want to take a moment to provide an overview of the different roles and responsibilities of sea turtle protection. Regulations for marine turtle protection come from different levels of government. Working from left to right, as you see on the screen, we start with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, who passed the Federal Endangered Species Act of 1973. This act authorized the determination and listing of threatened and endangered species. It prohibits the unauthorized take, possession, sale, and transport of endangered species. And at the state level, the Florida Marine Turtle Protection Act provides the regulatory framework for Florida to carry out the responsibilities of our Section 6 agreement under the Federal Endangered Species Act. This act prohibits the taking of marine turtles, eggs, or nests, including significant habitat modification or degradation that kills or injures marine turtles. The act also allows the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, FWC, which is a state agency, to issue marine turtle permits for research, education, exhibition, or conservation. It also gives the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, FDEP, who is also a state agency, the authority to include special permit conditions to minimize impacts to marine turtles. And so both of these agencies, FWC and FDEP, work together to review these permits and provide comments and conditions. Then we have Miami-Dade County, who holds the state permit to conduct marine turtle conservation work. The county conducts daily surveys of nests and marks them. They evaluate hatch success. They also respond to disorientation and other incidents, and they also lead nighttime releases. They cannot do anything outside of their permit conditions. And then we have the City of Miami Beach, who established the Sea Turtle Nesting Protection Ordinance to protect marine turtles. The city informs and educates the public through brochures, signs, campaigns, etc. We also ensure compliance with the ordinance. However, the city is not authorized to touch any nests or hatchlings or turtles, nor can we change the state regulations or issue state permits. I'd like to give a bit of background on sea turtle disorientation, as it's one of the main factors guiding the proposed amendments. Sea turtle disorientation occurs when both hatchlings and nesting turtles are misled by artificial lights. In darker areas, hatchlings instinctively follow the natural light reflected off the ocean to find their way, but bright artificial lights from streetlights or other sources can confuse them. And this can lead to hatchlings becoming lost or dehydrated or preyed upon, which significantly reduces their chance for survival. Artificial lighting can also disrupt the natural environment preferred by nesting turtles, which can cause confusion during nesting. This can lead to improper egg deposition or abandonment of the nesting site. As I mentioned previously, Miami-Dade County inventories hatched nests and documents hatchling disorientations. On the left, you'll see maps of different regions of Miami Beach with some colors ranging from dark blue to bright orange. The bright orange signifies areas with documented high disorientation rates. High densities of disorientation were found within or were documented within South, Mid, and North Beach in 2022 and 2023 due to misdirected and artificial lighting. In 2023, approximately 45% of nests within Miami Beach were disoriented due to misdirected lighting. And so as you can see, while tremendous efforts have been made to increase compliance, we still have a lot of work to do. So the city's Sea Turtle Nesting Protection Ordinance mandates the restriction of artificial lighting during nesting season on our beach between April 1st and October 31st. The most common problems seen at oceanfront properties that contribute to artificial light are tall, bright lights, white lights, unshielded fixtures, floodlights, overly lit areas, and interior lights reflecting out of rooms and hotels and condos. At the start of this year's nesting season, the city launched the Flip the Switch campaign. And so you may have seen this throughout the city in videos, pole flags, and community newsletters. This campaign aligns with FWC's Golden Rule, which is an easy way to identify sea turtle friendly lighting. The Golden Rule is to keep it low, and this means two things: to install lights lower to the ground to minimize light trespass, and to keep the brightness of the lights low and use only lumen output needed. The next rule is to keep it shielded, and this means to shield the lights. Either use full cutoff or fully recessed fixtures, or use 180 to 270 degree external beachside shields when in proximity to the beach. And this is because unshielded lights can contribute to unnecessary sky glow. The last is keep it long, and this means wildlife-friendly bulbs that have wavelengths that are greater than 560 nanometers, which means that they can be amber, orange, or red. So these next slides will consist of the changes that are proposed as part of the ordinance amendment. It's important to note that the draft ordinance incorporates changes based on recommendations from FWC after their review. And so starting with section 46-202, which details the definitions. So starting with artificial light. Artificial light already exists, but cell phone lights and flash photography have been added as sources of artificial light. The bug tight bulb term and definition have been removed as it's outdated. The terms beach walk, FAC, long wavelength light source, minimized, new development, and rooftop advertising sign have been added and defined. And then definitions pertaining to the light source type, so cumulative, direct, or indirect light sources, filmed glass, solar screens, and tinted glass have been amended. The next section with the proposed changes is section 46-203. This section pertains to prohibited activities that are disruptive to marine turtles. So right now, the operation of all motorized vehicles on the beach at nighttime during the nesting season is prohibited unless authorized. So for example, unless there are emergency and law enforcement or beach maintenance vehicles, or those permitted on the beach for marine turtle conservation and or research. And so for this section, language was added recommending the use of red or amber filters on vehicle headlights for vehicles authorized on the beach at night. The next would be fireworks displays. So with the changes, fireworks displays would be prohibited on the beachfront. However, they can occur from offshore barges, provided they have an approval from the fire department and a Florida Department of Environmental Protection permit or exemption. And the next would be the operation of motorized vehicles during nesting season. So the operation of motorized vehicles during nesting season would be prohibited unless otherwise specified by the ordinance. The main difference between this provision and the earlier one is that this pertains to both the day and the night, and not just nighttime. And then last is that lighting associated with special events cannot be visible from the beach after 9 p.m. to be consistent with state and county requirements. This is something that is already in place, but the language included would codify it. So the next section, most of the changes in this section are minor word revisions for clarity and consistency with the rest of the changes that we're proposing and FWC recommendations. However, I do want to highlight a couple of points. So the lighting standards for new development in the current ordinance apply to lighting east of the Coastal Construction Control Line, or the CCCL, or lighting that directly illuminates the beach. The proposed changes would modify these standards to apply to lighting within line of sight of the beach that interferes with turtle nesting, not just lighting east of that CCCL. In addition, we've removed the exceeding the 50% of the value structure as determined by the building official threshold for renovations to comply with lighting standards for new development. This would make it so that all new development within line of sight of the beach would need to comply with the lighting standards. And the same change would be made for existing development. The lighting standards for existing development would apply to lighting within line of sight of the beach and not just lighting east of that coastal construction control line. So in addition to the existing ordinance requirements for exterior lighting, we are proposing the following amendments. Within 6 months effective date of this article, all lights must be either repositioned, modified, or removed so that lighting is not visible from the beach. Within 1 year, traditional light bulbs should be replaced with low wattage, long wavelength light sources such as red, amber, or orange. And then within 1 year, pole lamps must be fitted with long wavelength light sources as well, so that red, amber, or orange, or they can be shielded. These timelines are the same as the existing ordinance, and so I just wanted to make that clear. And this is for existing exterior artificial lights. And so the final modification proposed is to address existing interior lights. Within 1 year, properties would need to either use window tint or film that meets the light transmittance standards for tinted glass, or they would need to rearrange lamps or other movable fixtures away from windows, or use opaque shades or room darkening window treatments such as blinds, curtains, screens, in order to shield interior lights from the beach. And if you look at these photos on the right, they were taken during a recent lighting survey, and it's very easy to note the brightness of interior lights from the beach. And so the proposed amendments would take effect 10 days following adoption, and compliance with the ordinance would be reviewed through the plan review process for new construction and replacement of light fixtures or glass. And routine nighttime lighting surveys will still be conducted by city staff along with Miami-Dade County Sea Turtle Conservation Team to evaluate compliance with the ordinance during sea turtle nesting season, which is April 1st to October 31st. And I also have George Hernandez here from Code Compliance to answer any questions about compliance. And then outside of that, the city will continue to provide education and outreach for the ordinance itself and in the sea turtle nesting season, through our Flip the Switch campaign, social media campaigns, newsletters, etc. And so we definitely welcome the public participation in that. So following tonight's workshop, the Turtle Nesting Protection Ordinance will go for first reading at the September 11th City Commission. And we have also made the draft Turtle Nesting Protection Ordinance amendment available on our website at ndrisingabove.com/sea turtles, or you can scan the QR code shown here. Now I'd like to turn it back over to Kevin for Q&A.
Thank you so much. Like we typically do for all our public meetings, if you could please click the raise your hand feature at the bottom of the screen. If you're on a mobile device, you can see where it says reactions, and then there should be a raise your hand feature there. So that way we can know if you have any questions or comments. I'm going to go to the first person with their hand up. If everyone could just keep their comments within 2 minutes, it just gives everybody an opportunity to speak. And if there's anything we didn't cover now, feel free to email us and we'll always connect with you. Paula Allen. Hi, Paula.
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. So I'm glad that I found this link. I couldn't find it on the meetings, but it was somewhere else on the city website. So basically, as you probably are aware, or at least I don't know, I think you said that the city officials, not employees, we have Mayor Minor and David Suarez on the call, Commissioner Suarez. So some of this sounds almost that it is opposite of, so what the requirements are may not comply with the code for safety lighting. So some buildings are undergoing 40, 50, 30-year recertifications, and one of the city requirements is having enough lighting in the parking lots, parking garage, parking lots. So there have a lot of buildings have had to increase lighting to a certain level to comply with the new code and the new certifications for 20, 30, 40 year. All right, so y'all are asking for red, amber, etc. may not meet the lumens required for safety. Same thing for pool decks, etc. In the condo that I have or that I'm in, we've changed and spent a lot of money to lower our pool deck poles, put it to amber. A lot of money spent because of the turtle requirements when this was done, however many years ago that we changed our lighting. We went as far as removing and spending a lot of money, removing all of the exterior balcony lights, having to pay electricians to unhook them, the concrete restoration companies to come and, fill them up, the holes, to do that for the turtles. So question is, because I see all these timelines, first question, does all of this comply with, or is it contradicting the safety requirements for lighting on pool decks, lighting in parking garages that the city requires. First point. Second point, is the city planning on providing funding to update providing funding for condos to update this, if that's what they want and require, when many condos just spent the money a couple years back to meet the requirements that were enforced back then, 10 years ago. So those are some of mine. And also the city itself, which I've sent emails recently on the beach walk lighting, they're projecting it nine floors up onto our building. The beach walk, supposedly turtle compliant lighting, is acting like a spotlight onto our building. 9 floors up, where we've gone as far as put the brand new window tinted balcony doors and window to be turtle compliant, removed our balcony lights, and then we've got lights blaring into our personal space that are the city's beach walk lights. So there's like this, yeah, I don't know. It's like,
Yeah.
we got to figure those things out, don't you think?
No, thank you, Miss Allen.
Yeah, the city can't pretty much require us to put more lighting out for safety purposes and then say, reduce all that lighting. We can't do both. We had a problem with this 10, 15 years ago with our pool deck lights, all this. Then they're like saying, put brighter lights in all of your areas for safety. And then you guys are saying from a different department, put them to amber and red. So I think those things need to be figured out, and then maybe some funding to go back and change the stuff that a lot of condominiums already shelled out a lot of money to do.
Thank you, Miss Allen. And that's a great point. Amy is going to help us respond because when we did community outreach, George actually went up and down the beach walk. And this was one of actually the biggest questions that had come up related to the Florida Building Code and the lighting requirements within that, as well as some confusion with our ordinance. So Amy, we're going to give her an opportunity to clarify that. On the funding aspect, I think that's more something that would come through policy that we could look into. And then separately, in respect to the lighting going up 9 stories up, that is a problem because those bollards, like you said, the amber bollards, it shouldn't be casting a spotlight, which you said it is. So we'll share that with our Public Works Department. So that way they could review it in the area. And you've emailed us in the past, so I think I have your address from there. So we'll make sure to deploy Public Works. I'll turn it over to Amy to walk us through the building code side of it. Amy?
Sure, and thank you for that comment. We have heard that question a couple of times. I spoke with Narinder Singh, our Deputy Director of the Building Department, a couple of times on this item. He walked me through the different forms that are utilized for the 40-year recertification, which is really, based on the Florida Building Code, and our city's also utilizing the Miami-Dade County forms for that. And so he did not see conflicts with the sea turtle lighting. If there are specific cases, I would really like to see that, and we can sit down with him. He doesn't feel there's any conflicts at this time because the way the form works, it's not requiring a specific level of brightness. It's just requiring certain, adequate levels or adequate lighting and electrical conditions. So we do want to look into that. We will be looking into that more. But from his perspective, he didn't see any conflicts, at this time.
Great, thank you so much. So next up, we'll go to Johan Moore. Johan?
Good evening, and thank you all for this wonderful legislation in support of the sea turtles. But I also really want to thank the last speaker. As an avid dark sky advocate, it's easy to overlook the burden on buildings, on especially higher rise condos with the infinitely greater issues. I had a couple of questions based on the presentation. I noticed there's a real hot spot at 5th Street, and I'm wondering if that's the result of the city's, or for that matter, maybe the county's own streetlights filling down the gap, so to speak, there onto the beach, or if that's private residence. And I'm wondering if the recommendation for amber headlights could be strengthened to an obligation, a mandate. I think I'll leave it at that on this issue, but encourage other turtle supportive legislation, including possibly morning closures of some of the most gestation friendly beaches at a time of day when apparently pregnant sea turtles are most likely to want to bask in the shallow waters just offshore, and which apparently seems to promote larger and healthier egg production. It might involve morning closures for a couple of.
Oh, sorry, Johan, we lost you there. I was trying to fix your. If you could go back, we lost you at sea turtle nesting. If you could just go back.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I see. So you can hear me now, I think. I wanted to urge that future focus for the sea turtles extend to possible morning beach closures, which would support sea turtles, pregnant sea turtles, which apparently develop better, stronger eggs if they can bask in the warm waters just off the beach. Our wide shelf just off of South Beach is seemingly an ideal spot for that. So that might be an additional focus beyond this lighting focus. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Johan, before you go, just wanted to clarify the 5th Street comment. Are you referencing the beach side or 5th Street itself? Because you mentioned dark skies.
Oh, right. There seemed to be the hotspot on the map, and I'm wondering if that's the result of private buildings lighting, or if it's the result of the thoroughfare lighting on 5th Street there spilling out onto the beach, if that clarifies
Perfect.
your
Got
question.
it.
Thanks very much.
All right, perfect. So I'll actually maybe turn that over. George has gone out multiple times throughout the beach with Samantha and the team. So Samantha or George, if you could help us with the concern regarding hotspot lighting, is that in respect to the roadway in the area, or is that coming from some of the private properties in the area? Or Amy?
Yes, George and Agnes. Yes, it most probably is coming from the public right of way from the street. And that's where all the light is showing, and it's creating a hot spot in certain areas.
Perfect. So next up,
Kevin,
Amy, go ahead.
Thank you. If I could jump in on that. The city's lighting team, we have a team from Public Works as well as facilities that has changed over a tremendous amount of lights this year and adding shielding and adjusting city-owned lights that we're able to. So I do think, those departments have worked really hard to change those lighting over. It can be very hard to locate exactly the source of lighting. There can be a lot of different sources, but that's something that we're, continually working on.
Great, thanks so much. So our last person with their hand up, and I usually say that, again, if you're not in queue, please go ahead and raise your hand. If not, we're going to go to Mr. Keith Marks. Keith? Hey, Keith, you're on mute, so we're going to send you a request to unmute.
Hi,
Hey,
can
there
you hear me? Yeah.
Now I can, yep.
So I understand, but I'm having a hard time coming to grasp with what effect it would have on our condo. In the sense that we have operated since 2002 and have continually on every project we've had been compliant with the Florida lighting for sea turtles and.
Oh, shoot. We lost you there, Keith?
Yeah, can you hear me?
There we go. Now we can, yeah.
All right, we've been compliant with Florida's, have had at our expense and worked with our lighting people, with the Florida experts in the state to make sure that, because we're on I think we're on 12.5 acres. We have 527 units. There's nobody that potentially can light up an area as big as us. But we've been running under one rule, and that is the light seen from the coastal line. Now you're changing it at will. And I could almost understand it if you were saying for new development, but you're telling us now that our lumens and every calculation is not based on what's seen at the coastal line, because, you know, the turtles theoretically shouldn't be affected past then if the lumens are at whatever the Florida said it was right. Now you're going all the way back to our building. And up to and including seeing if our personal property, our 500 plus condos at night are generating too much light. That's insane. I mean, some of the stuff that's coming out of the city lately is beyond. You're recommending to do that without telling us the magnitude, without understanding its impact, both to individual residents, to the master, to our budgets, to we have 3 tennis courts, 1 lit that was always allowed. You can't just throw this stuff out and say, oh, well, you got a year to make it happen. I don't understand. Somebody explain it to me, because this is crazy. How can you move all the rules all the way back to the building when forever it was at the coastal line on lighting? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marks. I'm gonna turn over to Amy and Samantha, if you could provide us with some background on where this came from and the Florida Fish and Wildlife input there.
And yes, thank you, Mr. Marks. So this did come from the Florida Fish and Wildlife, and it's an issue because there are some real visible lights that do impact the beach and can be seen from the beach. A lot of these, in terms of timeline requirements, have already been in our ordinance, and so a lot of the timelines are not new. But as you pointed out, really considering other lights, you know, is important. It is important also to note that we could be looking at interior units, which is something that the code hasn't done before. But there are also a lot of different options here in order to comply, and I think that's really important to point out, from either closing shades or redirecting, you know, lamps and lights inside, to changing the lights inside. So it's really just to help with some of the more egregious violators that are out there and that are just kind of causing some of these challenges. And it will give the city the ability to go ahead and give education. You know, George goes ahead and goes up and down the beach walk talking to people. If someone does not want to come into compliance, they would then go to special magistrate. But we're hoping that there's a lot of different tools to come into compliance so that it, you know, it doesn't lead to that, you know, a negative situation and impact as well.
Excellent. And next, I'm going to go to the next caller, Elizabeth Latone. Ms. Latone.
Hi, good afternoon. Hope you all had a nice holiday. I have a couple of questions. How does this affect businesses that have lights that project out as rooftops, et cetera, et cetera? Also, we tried to change our swimming pool lights a couple of years ago, but we had infrastructure things that we had to deal with that were more important. You know, how can you force people to change their lighting when they've already got recertifications coming up, they've got all these other structural expenses, and how can you, I guess I'm just trying to understand how people are going to be able to afford that. And what if you don't have any blinds or curtains or anything like that in your own home? I feel like portions of this are really egregious in controlling what people do inside their own homes. So maybe I could get a little bit of a clarification on some of those things. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much. So I'm gonna, maybe Amy, if you want to take a first shot at that, and then we could go ahead and expand it if needed.
So yes, Ms. Latone, so any lights that are coming, whether it's a business or, you know, a multifamily residential or a hotel, if that light is visible from the beach, and then yes, it could be subject to this ordinance. You know, I do want to point out that the way our ordinance now, when somebody comes in to change lights, unless it is over a 50% change in the building, they don't have to change those lights to be sea turtle friendly. And so what that has caused, we believe, and FWC believes over time, is that we haven't had maybe the changeover in some of the light fixtures that would be optimal that other cities have. And so what this does is when somebody comes in for a plan review process and is doing work at that point, that's where the light would need to be sea turtle friendly. So that's where that actual changeover in the, for example, an exterior fixture would need to be made. But when it comes to internal, it's not that we would be requiring people to change their lights inside, but if there are, you know, repeated violators and it's easy to see when you walk along the beach at night, where some people have extremely bright fluorescent lights, you know, inside their interior unit. It's very, very visible from the beach. This would allow our code enforcement team to make a visit, to give the education, and to, you know, hopefully change that behavior. If it doesn't change over time, then yes, that person could potentially have to go to the special magistrate in order to, you know, to make some changes, and they'd have to deal with it at that time. But it is intended to give a variety of options as well.
Thank you, Amy. And I'm going to go right back to Elizabeth Latone. I know we'll get, you know, give you definitely an extra minute because you did not spend most of your time. I see you put your hand back up, Ms. Latone.
Sorry, thanks. And thank you, Amy, for that. I feel all our condo lights are visible from the beach. Businesses, hotel lights, all of that. I mean, I feel like this is an overreach. And, you know, I appreciate everything, you know, wanting to protect the turtles and do everything possible, but this is really putting a financial burden on a lot of people. And I think it's gonna, I mean, I certainly don't want anybody coming in here and telling me what I can and can't have my lights if they're, you know, I am on the beach. I do have control lights. I have them on red. That's fine. But, you know, I wouldn't want somebody coming in and telling me, sorry, your lights are too bright. I'm going to give you a fine. What's the fine? What are the ramifications of this? Who's going to pay for this? You know, I didn't know it was all of this. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Latone.
Yeah, and just to note, Kevin, so there are no current fines in the actual ordinance. The ordinance is really aimed towards gaining compliance, and again, there's a lot of tools for that. And then the actual, if there was an issue, like I said, they would have to go to the special. There's no actual enforcement fines for the ordinance.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if it's my system, but it was breaking up just a little bit, but just to clarify, there's no fines in the ordinance today. If there is a violation, it would go to special magistrate. Okay, we're gonna, again, if you haven't had an opportunity to speak, if you could go ahead and raise your hand so that way we can make sure. I'm gonna go back to Paula Allen. Paula, you spoke earlier, but we'll give you one more minute if you wanted to follow up on anything. Ms. Allen?
Yes, hi. Yes, following up on what Elizabeth said on the personal lights. So our condo is in the process and we've got like 90% of our building done with the turtle compliant, very tinted windows and doors. So for me, we have done what we needed to do in addition to removing all of the balcony lights. So me having my lamps on next to my bed, next to my sofa, reading a book, I do think it is overreach since, you know, I've got all these tinted windows. If someone was to come banging on my door because I've got my lights on, reading a book, and we've done all this other already to appease the turtle people. And I'm calling it turtle people because there's like actual lawsuits against FWC and some overreach with Margaritaville, et cetera, saying they can't even put TVs on during the daytime. So there's like a lot of that going on. So it is Orwellian, 1984-ish, I would say, to try to control what people do in their own homes. That's all I got to say. Thank you very much. I know my time's up.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. And I do have 2 more people that have their hand up. You both already spoke, but we'll give you 1 minute just to follow up on anything you may have just heard from the previous speakers. Johan Moore.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you to both Paula and Elizabeth for their comments. as a member of the Sustainability Committee, but I want to point out, not on behalf of Sustainability Committee, I want to make the point that the public commons, as we have discussed it and argued about it in Miami Beach, in terms of noise from businesses and such, extends to other aspects of the municipality, including, for instance, our municipal tree canopy cover. I think that there are public interests that override the individual's interests. That being said, I really support the idea mentioned by Paula that there be some city financial support in order to not overburden condos, which also, as Mr. Marks mentioned, must be somewhat surprised and taken back by this. So thank you very much again.
Thank you, Johan. And again, if anyone may have missed today's meeting, any of your neighbors or members of your board, this is recorded, so we're going to go ahead and share that. I'm going to go to our last person who has also spoken before. Excuse me. I'm going to go to Mr. Keith Marks. Again, that's our last person. So after this, we'll go ahead and say some final remarks. Keith?
Yeah, thank you. And it's the topic that Elizabeth and others have talked about, and it gets back to personal responsibility. And I'm just, again, it's funny, I heard Johan mention something about noise. Several comments. Number one, where are all these code compliant people magically coming from to look at and walk around and take care of this when they can't take care of the wild, crazy stuff that goes on every day here with people at the marina, people on Ocean Avenue, noise. There's a ton of things that go on every day, and when we go to the city, they say, well, we don't have enough code compliance people. So are you flying in a team? Are you cratering your budget and adding a lot of people to turtle lights? Or are you taking them away from real issues that affect people's daily lives? That's item number one. Item number two, I'd like to understand, I have 500 plus units. Are you going to find the associations that represent those units? Or are you going to somehow figure out what unit is in violation and somehow determine its unit number and who is there? Because, by the way, we have a lot of renters during the year, and it is impossible for people to, I mean, this is actually sounds like a socialist type of save the turtles and ruin our lives. No, thank you. That's my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Marks. So I think I'm going to turn it over to Amy. If you could walk us through what are the next steps in respect to this ordinance, where is it going next, and just reiterate in respect to fines. I don't know if we know at this time if it's on the association itself, but I know it will go to special magistrate, and there are no fines associated with this ordinance as it is today. Amy?
Yes, the ordinance does not have fines in it. And, to Mr. Marx's comments, we have one person, George Hernandez, that does a lot of work in terms of code and education. He rarely has people going to special magistrate because people really want to comply and generally are doing everything they can to do that. So it's not intended to be an all-out blitz on everyone and every unit. It's really intended to be a tool and an education tool for people to be able to communicate. It can be as simple as just closing your shades, or as simple as turning down the most egregious lights in your unit. So it's really not an all-out blitz on all lights in Miami Beach. So I do want to be clear on that. What may change is when new lights come in and they're going through our plan review process. Those are some lights that aren't being caught now. And really that can save people from having to change them later, or having to worry about that at a later point in time, since currently our code only addresses lights once you are doing a change of more than 50% of a building. So it's really, there's a lot of different tools to basically go ahead and have people come into compliance. So we have George, he's great. I think a lot of people along the beach walk have worked with him. And it's really about that education and compliance. So we don't see that changing. If there's an egregious, owner that is completely lit up and it's causing some challenges, this allows code to go in and to educate and try to bring people into compliance. So our next step for this is to bring it to our city commission on September 11th for first reading. We welcome your feedback. Tonight has been, really valuable, to us, even though there still might be some questions to remain to be answered. We can do that for you. And specifically, we'll reach out again and have our deputy director of building present to really address some of those specific questions about the code requirements. And if you have anything specific on that, please send that to us as well so we can get that looked into.
Thank you so much, Amy. So with that will conclude our presentation tonight. Again, next steps, this is going to the September 11th commission meeting in approximately, I think, 2 weeks from tomorrow, or 1 week from tomorrow, excuse me. So once it reaches that commission meeting, that is the first reading. Second reading does include also public comment. So please continue to participate in the process. Tonight's meeting was recorded and we'll be happy to share that with you. So if you want to review the recording, share with your neighbors, please do so. So thank you again, everybody, and have a great night.